Welcome back to the workbench, everyone. I got this radio to look at here. This is from some sort of Toyota vehicle. It's a 6-disc CD changer with issues, as like we usually get around here. I don't know what the issue is quite yet, but if you take a look here, a lot of the times with these radios, especially the ones that have CD changers in them, as soon as you apply power, as in like as you connect it to the battery, or if you power it with the power supply or whatever, it'll kind of cycle through and check to see what discs are in the slots, and that way it has an idea of like what's in there and what's empty and whatever. But this one, I'm gonna apply power now, and it does nothing. It just sits there quiet. If I turn it on, it's okay, it's on. There's no discs in the mechanism right now because I took them out. I was able to just kind of slide them out through the top, so I could take a look in there and see if anything was obviously broken or whatever, but nothing that popped out like right away, right off the bat or anything. If I hit eject, it says no disc, but it didn't even check, so it has no idea if there is discs in there or not. If I hit load, it says wait and it flashes, but again, it does nothing. You hear none of the motors going or anything. So I don't know if it's like a power issue or if it's something that's mechanically like jammed or out of where it's supposed to be. I have a feeling that if it is an issue where it's not where it should be, that it might be dirty switches again, because that seems to be a pretty common issue. So let me turn it around here and you can see the mechanism. So that's it right there. We've got this ribbon that comes up here from, there's another little board right here. So we're gonna have to take that out and take a look. If possible, I'll try to like manually get it to go back into its home position, or if it's not there yet. It's got a bunch of switches. It's got one right here, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't know if there's any other ones. I believe I've fixed one of these before in the past, but it was a while ago. This is only like the second one of these that I've seen that I remember. So it's gonna be a bit of gonna have to take a look here and like try to figure it out as we go, because I don't remember the exact details of what I did to the last one of these. So let me remove the mechanism and we'll take a better look at it. Trying to figure out how to take these things apart is always a bit of a hassle. On this particular one, we have to remove the faceplate, and that'll allow us access to the screws in the front, which apparently hold the mechanism up here to the front of the unit. It's got a few screws in the back here. You had to remove a screw from this side, and then it's got one on the opposite side as well. But that alone doesn't allow you to release the faceplate. You also have to remove these little clips right here, and that requires the removal of 2 screws. This one on top, and then there's one right here underneath. Because without removing that, you can't pull the faceplate out. It keeps it mounted onto that plate in the front, this one right here. So once you remove these 2 screws, then you have to unclip this other clip here, and you gotta be kind of gentle so you don't break this clip, and then this one, it'll just slide out. So then that comes out, and then that allows you to release these clips and pull on the front of the faceplate, which you kind of have to do both at the same time. You have to pull out as you're unclipping these to release it. Alright, so I did those clips, and then this just kind of tilts forward, and it's got a few more on the bottom, but if I just kind of, yeah, there we go. So now the faceplate's out. Set that aside, and then we've got a few more screws right here in the front to remove. So it looks like we got to remove this one and that one, I think. I might end up having to remove all these to remove this front plate. Not sure yet, but it looks like there's not that many holding the mechanism in place. So like I said, there was that one right there. That'll release this plate right here in the back, but then it looks like it's got a couple other ones. Okay, so on the back, apparently the only ones I needed to remove was the one right here and the one down here, and that allows me to finally free it out. And in the front, it was just this one here, that one there, and the one on this side. So a total of 5 screws holding down the mechanism, and then that allows me to kind of tilt it out on the side here, You got to be kind of gentle because you never know what's going to be connected to it. And there's a ribbon right there on the bottom which goes to that board on the other side. So I'm going to turn this around where I can see that connector. And there's that, and this one's just one of the ones that pulls out on the bottom, releases the ribbon. So now that's free. I decided to take a look at these switches and just see what kind of condition they were in. And just listen to this. I mean, you don't even have to look at the multimeter to just kind of test what's going on. I connected it to this first one right here, and when I push the little switch in, see, it sounds pretty consistent. Like right there, I'm pushing it in, letting it go, pushing it back in, letting it go. And I get a reading of about, it reads pretty low, it reads about 0.1 ohms. This one, let me get it in there, about 0.05, 0.03. So, and I mean, it's pretty reliable, as you can see. This one here I'm not able to test yet, unfortunately, because this is in the way, so it's pushing down on it. But it has a resistance as is of about, well, I don't know, it's fluctuating quite a bit as I put, if I bounce it up and down a little bit. So that switch is probably iffy. Yeah, it's like jumping up all the way up to like 1 or 2 ohms if I just kind of like put some pressure on it. Yeah, it's like moving up and down. But this one here, check this out. I push it in, and you can hear it scratchy. Right there, I still have pressure on it, but it's really unstable. It's jumping up to like the hundreds of ohms. See? Yeah, that one's really bad. So I wouldn't be surprised if it just kind of went a little out of whack due to switches being a little faulty. And let's check this last one over here. I haven't checked this one yet. That one also seems kind of iffy and unstable. So my guess is that, yeah, it most likely went out of whack because of dirty switches. So I think, because nothing else looks bad, we might just need to get it back to wherever it's supposed to be at for like a reset position. And the way I do that is I look for these cutouts like this, like this little plate right here that has that hole. Usually that has to match up with something that's got the same shape, usually on the bottom, like that one there. So it looks like that one has to move over to that side for it to be in its home position. And this one doesn't look like it'd be very difficult because that's driven by this plate in the back here, and that goes to this gear, and that's all driven by the little motor in the corner right there. So I believe if I remove that clip from in there, I should be able to make this move around, and I can get it back into that position there. I don't think I really have to mess with the laser mechanism at all, so I'll just leave that alone. And all these plates look like they're already wherever they're supposed to be for their home position. I don't know if they're supposed to be up or down, but it might not matter. So what I'm going to do is this, actually, I mean, if that's the only issue here with these dirty switches and the and this just needing to be reset, that might be all that's wrong with this. I'm not sure yet. So like I said, we'll definitely clean the switches and get those in good working order. And I'll also remove the clip and get this plate to move into that position there. And then we'll fire it up and see if it, for whatever reason, it happens to work just fine. It's a short video, I guess, but we'll see. There it goes. Okay, so that's out. Set that aside. Okay, so now this gear will just lift up, and as you saw, that it already kind of went to the side there. So now this is free to move, and it doesn't look like it makes it all the way to where it's supposed to. So it stops right there. You can see that. So something's stopping it here. Let's see what else needs to move. Alright, so I took a look at it right here to see what it was that stops this from going all the way down. And it's these little white brackets right here. There's one on this side and then there's one in the other corner back there. So when this moves, those stop it from being able to move up farther down than where the laser assembly is. So the laser assembly is not at the very bottom, and we can kind of see that by the fact that this isn't lining up. So this laser assembly will probably need to move down, which I'm going to have to figure out how to do, because it doesn't, I mean, it's not driven by this the way I thought it was. So I gotta possibly remove the board from this side, because there's another motor inside there, so I might need to see if I need to loosen that up before this will allow me to move it up and down. And I also want to be able to move this around so that I can go and clean those switches, and specifically that one right there, because I want to be able to clean that one too. I mean, these are going to be easy to get to, but that one's going to be a bit of an issue. If this is in the way, I can't, you know, work it the way I usually do it. So let's see if we can figure out how to move this whole assembly here down. On second thought, never mind. These do not move at all. They're permanently attached to the sides there, so that's as low as that mechanism goes. And this, I believe, the only way to make it move lower is for these little sluts right here on the side to move. And I kind of vaguely remember that now. I just don't remember how to move them. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this plate up here that's covering up some stuff, and potentially maybe even this motor. Not sure yet, but I believe there was something in there that allows you to move these. So let's take that off and see what's inside. Remove that plate that was up here, which is this one right here. It had 3 screws holding it down, but there's really nothing underneath of interest in there. And then in the front here, I removed this mounting plate that was right here, but there's nothing really interesting underneath that either. So I think I'm gonna have to resort to removing this board so I can have some access to that motor in there, because the way it works, as it turns out, is that there's this, it's got this little sort of hook right there that goes attached to that peg on this plastic piece, and as this moves like back and forth, it moves those like into position or out, you know, to grab a whatever number disc the tray it needs. So I believe that might be driven by that motor down there. So to remove this board, it's got this little tab right here that I gotta bend off to the side. I gotta remove that screw, gotta remove a screw on this side, and I'm gonna solder these two, because these two go to the motor right here on the corner. And I just need to get it kind of out of the way, and then just releasing all these flat flex connectors, and that should allow this board to come out. There's nothing else really holding it in. It's got another tab right here, but it looks like they didn't bend this one outwards. So yeah, let's remove that and see what we got. Okay, I was just getting ready to remove this board, and I already desoldered these wires from the side here and undid this clip and everything. So this is free. It's you know, it just comes off now. But one thing I noticed was that there's a motor down here, and this motor looks like it drives these gears up here, and that leads me to believe that it's got something to do with this plate, or this that sort of a elongated tab right there that works these switches, and this other side over here. And in case it's not pretty obvious already, I don't really know what I'm doing with this one. Like I said, I had only worked on one of these like previously, and that was a while ago, or I mean like previously only on one of these, and that was like a while ago, so I don't really remember it very well. And what I'm kind of mostly doing this video to kind of show like how I go along, or how I go about, you know, trying to figure these things out. I don't, like I said, I don't have a service manual or anything for these, so I don't know exactly, you know, what I'm looking for or what I'm even going to find. So I just kind of have to go by observations and, like, you know, removing a part at a time, trying not to force anything. You know, if something's not working the way it should, I try not to force it, because I don't want to break parts or anything else or make it worse than it is. So I just kind of go with the, you know, just go with the flow and see what I can find. If we drive this motor, just power it directly from here, it wouldn't be an issue, because these leads, or these traces, actually lead back to this ribbon connector here, which actually went to this board. So I can apply power directly to that motor without risk of burning anything up. And then sure enough, back here, these are the drivers for the motor, these two chips right here. There's a little bit more than I thought was going to be on here. So you got some memory, that's probably one of the microcontrollers or something for the system, and that looks like it might be another sort of driver, not sure. But so, you know, well, I guess it wasn't totally necessary to remove this, but we'll just leave it out of the way for now. So there it is, there's that motor, and yeah, that looks like it's got something to do with the whole mechanism up there. So let's see what we can figure out from there. There's a motor on the bottom. Oh, and look at that, more switches. So we'll probably have to deal with those too, just to make sure everything's working properly. Looks like we might be able to just manually, yeah, we can just manually turn this here and see what that does. And that's what I tend to do. Whenever I see a motor, you know, I'll try to either power it and make sure that there's nothing that's going to be, you know, going to be receiving power, like a driver or something, and I'm at risk of burning it up. So I'll remove the leads that go to the motor and just drive those by themselves. This motor actually looks like it's driven by this one right here. The two contacts at on the far left right here on the bottom, looks like those are the ones that go to that motor. I'm not 100% sure yet though, so I'm not just going to go and do it. But these are loose enough where I can just kind of turn them by hand. So I'm going to figure out what that does, and from just a quick guess here, it looks like that might actually be the one that pops this out. So I don't know, let's just take a look. We'll just, sure enough, there it goes. So that's the one that moves out to grab the disc. So, and as you can see, that tab right there is the one that pushes up against these two switches right here. So that's most likely to indicate to the system where the spindle assembly is in space, you know, so it knows if it's inside or if it's out. So apparently that's all that one does. So not much doing there. At least we can, oh, and let's see, if we keep going, we can see that this little tab right here pushes on these other ones here. So if we leave this out, we'll be able to clean these fairly easily. So now we know what one of the motors does for sure. Well, I mean, we know that this other one back here in the corner moves those plates up and down. And so now we know what this one does. We know that it has nothing to do with driving any of that stuff. So that leaves us with this motor right here. That's going to be the one that moves this assembly here to, you know, select these switches and to release the plates so that they're able to move up and down. So the home position for the laser assembly is obviously going to be in there. So we'll leave that one, you know, once we clean all these switches in there, we'll leave that one in here. See, I just rotate it until the motor stops, and at that point right there it stops. So we'll leave that one there. This one, once we can get that loosened up, you know, and we can put that back into so that it lines up with the hole in the bottom, that one right there, we'll leave that one in that position. And I believe those are the only two that are pretty obvious. I think there was here on the side, if this is clear up, there's these on the side here that might line up with something, but I'm not 100% sure yet. It looks like, oh yeah, sure enough, looks like there's kind of hard to see if I move this a little. But yeah, there's some, you can kind of see one right here off to the far. Hold on, let me focus real quick. That hole right there looks like maybe something lines up with that one. And then there's another one back there. And if it would stop trying to focus on the front there, you see it. Okay, so yeah, let's go ahead and drive this motor. And I'm going to power it. Like a lot of these, like I've mentioned before in other videos, it seems like they're powered by like 9 volts for the most part. I'm just going to apply, I'm going to start off with 4.5. Just because I don't want it going too fast, and you know, if something is jammed, I don't want it to crack any more gears or anything. So we'll do 4.5 to the motor directly, and we'll see, you know, what exactly that does with the rest of this stuff here. So I might be able to, you know, just use this motor to move these out of the way, and then see if anything else, you know, any other holes line up with any other holes, and that'll kind of let me know that, you know, they should be in a certain position for, like, you know, for its home position or whatever. So let's get this power supply set up here, and then we'll try driving that motor real quick. Alright, so we got our 4.5 volts set up here. I'm going to use these 2 test leads just to apply power to those. And let's observe and see what it does when I power that motor. I'm going to try to keep my hands out of the way so we can get a good look at it. I'll start by putting negative on this one here. Then I'll put positive on that one. So let's see. And motor no worky. Let's try the opposite way. Nothing. Not getting anything. So apparently maybe 4.5 is not enough. Let's go to 6. If 6 doesn't do anything, then I got to start checking out why, or trying to figure out why this motor isn't working. So let's put negative on the back one again and positive in the front, and not getting anything at all. Let's try opposite way, and nothing. You know what though? I am getting an overload condition on the power supply. It's lighting up the overload LED. So this motor might actually be bad, and that's not terribly surprising because I have come across a few of these where these motors were bad, and it's what had failed on them was actually the brushes, because a lot of them they just use like these metal contacts that are kind of placed like this, you know, and then the commutators in the middle. Well, they've gotten either like all mangled, or you know, it's like worn down to the point where it's not making very good contact. But in this case, it's showing on the power supply that it's shorting, so that means that they're probably all mangled, and so they're actually just shorting out instead of doing anything. And an easy way to usually see if that's the case is if I manually rotate the like the gear right here on the end. Sometimes that'll free those contacts up to the point where it'll actually do something. So let me get here we go. So let's just kind of move it around a little bit, and then we'll see what. See, it's not overloading because it can't rotate, because it's, I mean, I'm doing it with this pick here and it's moving pretty freely. I'm not really putting much pressure on it at all, and it's moving. So it's got to be those brushes. So now that I've moved it around a little bit, let's see if it does anything. If it turns out that that is the case, and that's what's failed on this motor, then we're gonna have to replace this motor. So I'm gonna have to look and see if I can find one in something else. I can, you know, some other mechanism I can take one out of. And this is still not working, so they're probably shorted pretty good. Yeah, that's not working at all. So I'm gonna have to remove that motor and test it outside of here and see what it's doing. That's going to require me to move this tab out of the way here, so that's not terribly difficult. We just got to bend this out like that. There's no other screws. There's one right there, there's one right here. So that looks like it might be, I'm gonna have to unsolder these two, so I got to remove those, and then that should allow me to lift this up enough. It looks like there's just one screw inside of there that it's going to be hard to see there, unless maybe if I zoom in you can see it. Yeah, you can kind of see it down in there in that crack. There's a screw that looks like it's holding this whole assembly in place, because that's going to be the only way I'm going to be able to remove this motor. It's screwed into the front here onto this little plate, but it looks like that's just held in on the back there. So got to undo this connector, or yeah, unsolder those from the board, and that should probably allow me to lift this up enough to get in there. I would kind of rather avoid having to remove that there if at all possible, but I mean, if I have to, I will, but hopefully not. Okay, so that's out. And the way I had to remove this is I had to just try to heat all 4 of these up as I lifted it up, because it's not just soldered on for the top right here. They actually folded it over, and so it's soldered in on the bottom too, so just removing the solder from the top doesn't completely free it up. So I had to heat up all those, and that's kind of why I would dread having to remove this one, because that means I got to heat them all up and then, you know, try to peel it off as I go, and in the process try not to break the thing. So that looks like it should free up enough room for us to get in there and remove that screw, which looks like I should be able to just do from here. And I apologize if you can't see anything. So that comes out, and I just dropped the screw inside. Oh well, I'll have to get that out. But let's see if that, yeah, so that should come out, hopefully. Alright, so apparently removing this motor is not going to be the easiest thing in the world. So I'm going to remove this cable, or this ribbon cable, off from the back of it, because that's soldered directly onto the motor. The way I'm doing that is I'm using the pick to kind of pry away at the ribbon while I heat up the that little solder ball right there, and that allows me to pry it off the board, so, or the motor. So that releases it from there, and I did the same with the back one right here, because I really do not want to damage these ribbon cables if at all possible. They're just more of a hassle to replace, if anything. So okay, those two are free now, so that releases that, and that's apparently it's double-sided taped onto here, so I'm just going to be gentle and just gently peel it off. Okay, so that moves that out of the way, and still not quite able to get this out of here. There's got to be some trick to it. I really hope it doesn't require disassembling in this whole part right there, because that's just going to be a pain. I don't know. Maybe. Yeah, see, there's just not enough room to pull it out from the front there, because the top of that doesn't clear that opening. So I gotta figure out a way to get this out of here. You know, maybe if I... No, that doesn't move anything out of the way. That's not gonna help. Yeah, it's kind of in a pickle here. And I was gonna try to just remove the screw from the front there. Problem is, this little tab is in the way and doesn't let me get anything in there. So unfortunately, I can't just undo that screw and, you know, and hope to pull the motor out from the bottom. Oh, let me see what I can figure out. Oh, and lucky us, look, here's another switch up in the front. This thing just has switches all over the place. And like I've said, you know, those for some reason tend to, over time, they kind of become unreliable. So, well, I guess we'll see if we can get to that one too and give that one a cleaning as well. Oh, and if I tilt this up, there's another one in there. So, geez. Okay, the motor's finally almost out. And here's what I did. First of all, unclipped this spring from where it was between these 2 points. There's a little hook right there, and there's one down here. That one right there was hooked onto those, so that's out. Then I pulled the worm gear off the motor, which is that one right there. Just be kind of careful not to break anything in the process. So that's out. And then finally, that gave me enough room to be able to tilt it down just enough to get this screwdriver in there on the head of that screw. So now that should loosen up the motor just enough for me to be able to possibly put out the back here. And there it goes. So motor's out, and of course that little screw I just removed fell inside of there. So oh, there it is. So got that out, and I got the other one out too. So now let's try powering on this motor by itself, and of course it's probably not going to work. Well, it seems to be working there, so what the heck is going on? Yeah, motor seems to be working fine by itself. So I don't get it. I don't get why it was not working when it was on here. Let's check something here. You know that feeling you get when you realize that something could have been done way easier than you did it? Well, I'm getting that right now, because I realized that all I had to do was move this the lasers and spindle assembly out of the way, and that would give me enough room to be able to pull the motor out from underneath there. I actually just tried to see if I could, you know, like just fit the whole thing in there, and I can. So that's all I had to do. I didn't even have to go through all the work of removing that spring or removing the worm gear off the motor or anything. So you know, that's my feel stupid moment for the day. And now I'll be able to clean these contacts on there, so I can open up the hole, so I can... Apparently, I don't know, it doesn't seem like anything's wrong with this motor. It's once I power it up externally, it's fine. Although one thing I did notice, and I didn't really think about it right then, but after I removed the unsoldered this connector or this ribbon from these pads right here, there was a little chunk of like metallic something. I don't know, it looked like it might have been a piece of like copper from one of these ribbons or something. Like it was just there, like in between the positive and the negative on the motor. So I don't know if maybe that was like a factory defect or something, and I really wish I could find that little piece. I don't know where it went. Like I said, I thought that, you know, maybe once I removed this ribbon from there, you know, that maybe I did something. But the thing is that when I removed this, I didn't run the soldering iron back and forth on there. All I did was just heat up the ends here, or heat up these pads on this end and then just slowly just lift it up. I didn't go back and forth. So that little metal chunk that I found was like right here in between these two. So it's possibility that maybe, you know, whatever was there has been there for a while and just, you know, eventually caused issues. Because as I said, and I'm probably not going to be able to hear it. Well, maybe if I put the worm gear on it, you'll be able to tell. But once you power up this motor by itself, I mean, it seems to work just fine. You know, maybe I'll check the resistance on it with the multimeter, but I mean, it does not seem to have any issues at all. So I don't know, maybe there isn't any issues with this motor. So I'm going to clean up the contacts, and I'll clean up the holes right here on the ribbon, and I'll reattach it, and then we'll see what it does from there. And this motor not working actually makes sense as to why when we power up the unit, it does absolutely nothing. It doesn't go through. It doesn't even try to like go through the process of checking to see if there's any discs in there, because apparently this one, you know, is the one that's got to do some of the work first, and then after that it, you know, goes and does everything else. So I have a feeling that once we get this one going, then it's probably gonna, you know, do everything else it needs to do. So let's clean this up. We'll put it back in, and then I'll run it manually and see what we get. And I'm also going to go ahead and clean all these switches here. I mean, I'm not going to show the process of me cleaning these out, because you've already seen that in a previous video, which, you know, I'll probably link down below. But there's a bunch of freaking switches we got to clean. We got to clean all 4 of these. The one in here, the one up here, the one inside of there, the one that was underneath here, and then all 4 of the ones on the bottom there. I mean, they just went all out with switches on this one. They spared no expense. Okay, as I mentioned, I wasn't going to go into detail about how to go about cleaning these switches again. But one thing I did want to do is I wanted to give credit to one of our viewers whose name I can't remember at the moment, but I will give credit to once I go to edit this video. Anyways, he mentioned to use a dropper to be able to clean these, because the way I was originally doing it was that I was using the little straw that came with the container of deoxid, and, you know, just kind of allowing the capillary action to kind of pull up a little bit there and then just releasing it onto the switch. Well, he suggested, you know, using like a little one of these like little jar, you know, with this little needle dropper. And I don't have the jar, but I did have this little needle dropper from one that I had purchased a while ago that I completely forgot that I had. And yeah, this definitely makes things would make things a lot easier. You know, you just get your deoxid in like a little cap or something, and then you can just, you know, you have a little bit more control over where you apply it, like that. And then we just, you know, go through the process of kind of working these a little bit to get them cleaned up. So I'm gonna go and do this to all of them. And thanks again for the suggestion. You know, like I said, I had this laying around, but I just completely forgot about it until you mentioned it. And again, we can see that just giving these a quick clean is already helping out a lot. It's a lot more consistent, and it's not all scratchy anymore as it was before when I first showed it. So yeah, now it's like consistently reading below 1 ohm. So yeah, definitely issue probably had something, maybe something to do with the switches, not 100% sure. And like I said, also the that little metal piece in there, which I don't know. So, or maybe a combination of the two. I have no idea, but I have a feeling that everything's probably going to work fine once we put it all back together. I already gave these pads right here a cleaning, so now they're nice and clean to be able to put the motor back on. But I will do that once I'm done with all these and everything else. Then I'll go ahead and put the motor back on. Okay, so now got all those switches clean. Now it's time to put this motor back in, and watch, it's going to be so much easier just coming in from down here and getting it back into its place there. And there it goes. Sure enough, all that struggling for something that I could have done a lot easier. Shoot, I should not have moved this out of the way. Now I got to remove it again. Hold on. Okay, so now I got the ribbon on the right side and the motor's in, and I just got to solder this back on. And this part won't be too difficult because, I mean, this ribbon's already kind of used to being in that position, so it's kind of formed with it. So those went in pretty easily. Just got to solder those two, and then I can solder this back on and, you know, redo all the tabs and everything. And I will put that one gear back onto the back that I removed from right here, and I'll return this to its starting position, which that's the wrong way. And I might not even do anything else. Well, yeah, I still got to power this up and see if these move. So yeah, we got to do that first. I almost forgot. Okay, so that's all back in place. I've got these tabs bent back in, and a lot of the times what you'll see on these boards is like they'll have a little arrow or something like noting which way these tabs should bend. So in this case here, you know, the arrow is kind of pointing in this way, so I got to bend the tab in this way, and then it's got this other one here. It's kind of hard to see because there's a stamp right here with some black numbers, but there's an arrow right underneath it, and it's showing that it goes in that direction. So both of those are in place. I had to make sure that I pushed that one in before I put it in place, because if I would have just jammed it down, I would have broken this switch, because this tab would have been hitting this other part right here, this elongated tab, and I could have snapped it up. So I just had to remember to push that in place first before I did anything else. And now I've got my power supply set again at 4.5 volts. Let's try this again and see what it does. Apparently everything should be okay, so there it goes. Well, it stopped at that spot, so I'm guessing it has to go the other way. Maybe that's where it stops. Nope. You know what I'll actually do is I'll try to return everything to where it was when I first got it, and we'll try it from there and see if it works. So I got to return this to kind of like over here. So I got to return it to there, and I got to lift this plate back up so that it's held in by these little slots. Okay, I've returned all the plates to where they were when I initially got this. I put that gear back on. I mean, I can't move this any farther to be able to get it in so that hole matches up with the other hole underneath. But I think it should be free now. So if I power this up, it should be able to do something. Okay, so that go the other way. Sure enough, looks like it opened up the front of the loader there. And if we look at it, go backwards, closes up, and it goes to, yeah, it's doing stuff. So I think we should be okay. Yeah, I really can't find anything that would kind of indicate where this motor should be at, you know, as a starting position. So I'm just going to leave it where I found it, or, you know, right near where I found it. I'll put it all back together, and we'll plug it back in, and we'll see if it does anything. Hopefully it will, but, you know, never know. So let's give it a shot. Alright, just as a suggestion, in case you're messing with one of these yourself, depending on what you're doing, it might not be a good idea to remove this clip from here, because I had a really hard time trying to get all these to line back up into their corresponding little slots there on this other component that's back there. And I had to like keep moving the motor back and forth a few times to be able to finally get this to go back up to where it was. But now it's there, and now I've got this board back into place. I soldered these two wires back on. So I'm going to just I need to put on this the little bracket in the front here, and I need to put on this little plate that was back here, and then we'll put it back into the rest of the system and power it up. Okay, so everything's back together. We have it in here. It's not mounted in permanently yet. I just have it sitting inside, but I have the faceplate back on, and I'm gonna power it now. But I'm gonna keep my hand on I'm gonna keep my finger on the switch just so I can shut it back off in case something sounds like it's not going right. So here goes. It should start cycling through and checking to see if there's discs as soon as I turn it on. So let's see what happens. Sweet. Looks like it's working just fine now. So that's 3 right there. 4. 5. And I guess the top one is number 6. So it looks like we're good. And I guess that was it. Let's see. When you hit eject, it should say no disk for sure. Okay, so that's good. Hit load. There it goes. Now let's try to put something in and see how it goes. Oh, it's kind of hard to do. There it is. So I guess that was it. Just, well, I mean, honestly, I don't know which of the two was the cause of the issue here. If it was these switches or something up with the motor, but I mean, apparently that motor's just fine. So I don't know. I'm a little not completely stumped, but I just kind of wish that I knew which one was the exact cause of the issues here. But yeah, it looks like we're good now. Let's try loading another one in. I'm sticking to Windows XP disk just cause. So far so good. Let's eject them all. It's gonna hold this button down, and I believe it should eject everything. Got one. Alright, so yeah, I think we can call this one good. All I gotta do now is just put everything back together, but I mean, other than that, it seems like whatever the issue was, it's gone now. Whether it was something with the motor, something with the... Well, apparently it wasn't the motor like I thought it was, because after I took it out and, you know, tested and everything, there was no indication that the brushes on it were bad. But that little chunk that was inside in here underneath the ribbon between those two contacts, that could have been, like I said, part of the issue, unless it somehow got in there, like, you know, after the fact or whatever, somehow it ended up lodged in between those two pins. Maybe that could have been it, but you know, at the same time we took care of all the switches, so this unit should probably be good for, you know, for a while again. So, well, thanks for watching. I hope you maybe picked up a few little tips here and there from here. So thanks a lot, and I'll see you guys next time.